Hi, I'm Tarryl Clark, the Senator from St. Cloud and the Senate Assistant Majority Leader. Welcome to another edition of The Update. We're at the midpoint in the 2009 session, and you can probably tell by my voice that the little bug's been going around here as well as in other parts of the state, and everybody is ready for a little bit of a break. Today is the last day of session before the Easter Passover break. We will be breaking until next Tuesday, the Tuesday after Easter. So this will be my last edition until then. As I said, we're at the midpoint. What that means is that we have been having our committees work through the budget process. The policy committees are done with their work as of tonight. The budget bills have been started to be put together, and this has been a real challenging year. When we came back in January of 2009, we were facing a huge deficit. Unprecedented unemployment in many ways. In 2008, our unemployment was up to 6.6%. We lost 60,000 jobs in our state compared to 2006, where our unemployment was under 4%, and we were having job growth at the time. Now, unemployment's even gotten worse lately, and in areas like mine, in St. Cloud, we're now up to 9.4% unemployment. That's more than anybody has had on record in our area. And that's not even as high as the building trades, engineers, architects, and others. So it's been a real challenge. So we've come into this session, as I said, with the economy down, many of us, our families around the state being hard hit. And we came back in March, and the forecast said that we had a $6.4 billion deficit, a 25% greater deficit than when we found out in December what it was at that point. The forecast then was 25% lower. So we've seen that in our homes, we've seen that across the state. So the big order of business for this session is the budget. And nobody can remember having to deal with a problem quite this bad. It probably is the problem that's bigger than at least since World War II, if not beforehand. So that means serious solutions are needed. And while the governor likes to talk about tightening the belt, it's a lot more than tightening the belt. We're having to make a lot of hard decisions on cuts, and frankly, we're going to need some more revenue. So the approach that the governor put out, usually the governor's the one that puts out the fiscal discipline, the hard medicine bill, says here's the approach we need to take to go ahead and get our financial house in order. At least that's what previous governors have done, but that's not what happened this time. This time the governor has put out a budget that largely uses one-time funds in these next 2 years and then doesn't balance the budget on the years out. They're often called the tails. Right now we have to be thinking about those tails because the budget deficit may be at $6.4 billion right now, but they're estimating it'll be over $4.5 billion in 2 years. So we need to be budgeting it all the way through. And again, usually that's what the governor does, or a governor does. This governor has not done that. Instead, he's leaving a $2.6 billion deficit. And the way that he's solving the first 2 years, again, is largely one-time spending. Shifts in education, a tobacco bond revenue that's kind of hard to explain, frankly. It's essentially borrowing $900 million today that's going to cost us $1.6 billion in the future, using federal one-time money, and then frankly hitting health care really hard for many Minnesotans. Over the next few years, he's proposing to cut health care by 33% and then capping spending on it. And we don't know what that'll mean. Under the current proposal, we know that at least 113,000 Minnesotans would lose their health insurance, that over 11,000 jobs in the private sector would be lost. We know that people who are in nursing homes who need rehabilitation therapy wouldn't be able to get it. We know that there's a number of optional services that are very important for people who are disabled, who are seniors, that wouldn't be able to get. That if you're over 100% of poverty and you're an adult, you're not going to be able to get health insurance through the state. Or at least that's what his plan is. So what's happened is he's pitting seniors and people who are disabled against school kids. He's saying that he's holding public safety harmless, and Highway Patrol is held harmless. But our police, our fires, our sheriffs, our first defenders at home, they're not. They're cut significantly. And he says he's protecting veterans. One group, though, the most vulnerable veterans is going to be hit hard by this budget. If they have chemical dependency issues, if they've got significant health issues and mental health issues, they'd be hit hard by this proposal. So that's hard to see how that's going to help us move forward in the future. It is very short term and doesn't really solve the problems that we have. The Senate's taken a very different approach. It's a harder approach to swallow, but what we decided to do is that we need to take a lesson from former Governor Carlson, governors like Al Quie, and take the hard medicine now. Swallow hard and figure out how to be making hard cuts to services we all care about while protecting core services and mitigating the harm to Minnesotans. So we are doing across-the-board cuts, proportional cuts, being able to soften them some in the first 2 years with some of the federal funds, but it'll be harder cuts even in the next 2 years. And that's $2.4 billion of cuts, and even with that, we're still short some money. So we are proposing to raise revenue about $2 billion. Now, that's not something anybody really wants to do. Raising taxes, finding new revenue, making cuts to services, those are all real challenges. But in these times where people are hurting, we need to figure out how to be helping the people who need it the most. We need to balance this budget, and frankly, we need to put our state on a good pathway for the future. So it kind of boils down to two choices. Do you do the approach suggested by the governor, which in a way is a little bit like being given cotton candy? It looks like it's got some substance, and it kind of goes down pretty easy, but then it evaporates, and it's just not there. And then you're left with a big problem, big hole. It doesn't fill you up. Or do you go the route that the Senate's proposing, which is like taking castor oil? It tastes pretty awful, but you swallow hard and you take the medicine, and then when you get better, you're able to go ahead and move on. So you need to let legislators know right now, whether it's me or somebody else, what kind of approach you want, a balanced approach or something that's very short term that leaves a pretty big problem for the future. You can reach us at www.senate.mn. I'm Tarryl Clark, and we sure would like to hear from you. Have a good day.